what I've learned in 35 years technology is that, you know, we always go to that same S-curve, but if the adoption is poorly done in the beginning of the S-curve, we most often don't reach the top of that S-curve, the complete adoption of this technology. And the sad story is that while in the consumer space, these S-curves are pretty complete, nobody has a feature phone anymore. In enterprise technology is a different story. Because if you're a large organization, we still have remnants of legacy technologies such as mainframes, or client-server topologies, or distributed computing, and so on. And the complexity that Matt was talking about, that is basically hindering us to adopt new technologies. Yeah? And especially when you talk about Gen AI, my background is AI. I started as the first knowledge engineer at AXA many years ago. The reason why the first wave of AI in the late 90s didn't succeed was primarily because we didn't have the compute, we didn't have the network, we didn't have the storage capabilities to really expand our neural networks. Now we all have that, but my concern is not so much that the lack of infrastructure to do AI or Gen AI or whatever type of AI is the complexity that is basically holding us up. And we keep building technologies on top of other technologies, legacy technologies. And that's, I think, what you all said in the research that Matt presented. So I'm a Bain external advisor. So looking at, Bain did recently, late 2023, a study about cloud adoption globally. This is not purely Australian, it's a global context. And what we see is that typically in cloud adoption, we have four types of profiles. We have the avoiders, who are not really adopting cloud and just waiting. You have the migrators who are using cloud to shift load from on-prem to cloud without doing any fundamental re-architecture, re-platforming, and so on. Then you have the explorers who are, understand that cloud is not just a lift and shift, it's about, moving to new architectures, microservices architectures, serverless, 12-factor applications, but who are not really linked to a business strategy. And then, of course, you have the fourth type, which is the strategic value creators, which are linking cloud to a business strategy. And I will explain what the factors are. And what we're basically finding is that the majority of the companies globally who are cloud migrators, they're basically looking at it as an IT activity, and they're only pursuing it from an infrastructure perspective. And in fact, you can see the numbers that 60% of these companies are doing a lift and shift, basically moving legacy technical debt into the cloud, and 40% of the companies, they're really trying to re-architect. And they try to leverage the cloud for new capabilities, new topologies, new architectures. Yeah? But then at the same time, they are suffering with execution capabilities. And 40% have severe execution capabilities, that's basically resulting in delayed implementations and so on. Which is, of course, impact, if you're in that bracket of the cloud migrators, how difficult it is to keep your top management enthusiastic in your cloud migration, because it is a multi-year journey. Yeah? And that's where the real issue is. Then if you look at how much are linked to a business strategy in the research that we did at Bain, is that 72% of the companies globally have a cloud roadmap, which is good, but only 40% are linked to business outcomes. Of that is 17% are up to date, and only 16% have a proper link between cloud strategy and the business strategy. And that's the fundamental. That is also what I experienced in the European Banking Federation, talking to banks and so on, is that linkage was often missing. And business leaders are asking, why are we doing cloud? Yeah? And they're running out of steam, and of course, lack of interest, and then you get problems with the funding. So the 10 steps that we applied in doing a cloud migration at scale across 45 countries, you can see them here. So first of all, the first step is you need to find a strategy, and the strategy cannot be about cost only. In fact, cost is the most difficult parameter to go after. Yeah. It has to be more than cost. It has to be about capabilities, about agility, innovation, whatever your industry or your company needs, it needs to be driven by a business strategy. You need to know your current environment. And I made that mistake too when we were, and you will see the stories and the failures that we had. But if you don't know your current environment, if you don't have a proper application inventory, and you have a deep understanding about your applications, and more importantly about your data that is processed by these applications, you know, any migration will be very problematic. So investing in that inventory management capability is very important. You need a business case. And that business case is not just a hockey stick curve, saying, you know what, I'm going to go on a journey. In 3 years' time, I will close one data center. That is not a business case. The business case has to give a return, a gradual return, an annual return, so that you can keep that enthusiasm with your business leaders. You choose your CSP. I did that mistake. We chose the CSP, and we quickly realized it's not about one CSP, because you will end up with all major cloud providers, and I will explain why. But you have to start with one, and it is very important that you build a very deep relationship with that CSP you start with. We were basically a very late comer in implementing Teams, as an example, the collaboration communication tool for Microsoft across 45 countries. And I thought, how difficult can that be? Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, Bank of America, whatever, they all have implemented Teams. And then when we start implementing it across these 45 countries, and they all have different regulations, we discovered that we're missing fundamental capabilities in the Teams platform. For instance, ethical walls. You know, you need an ethical wall between different departments in an investment bank. Teams didn't have a suitable ethical wall capability. And then I called my colleagues at Goldman Sachs saying, how did you implement Teams? Because you're an investment bank too. You know, your research guys can't talk to the investment bankers. So we're not using it for communication. We have a different tool. So they were not even using the complete Teams toolkit where it was developed for. So it is important to have a very, very deep connectivity with your provider. You know, you can call Seattle. You're not talking to the marketing, the salespeople, because they're not going to solve your problem. But the product people are saying, look, your ethical wall capability is not up to the scale that we need. You need to fix it. And these are, you know, I think that relationship is very important. Need a cloud adoption capability. We only came to that realization very late in the journey. I will explain what it is in a minute. You need adoption and migration strategies for each individual application. Most important element is you need the skills. And these skills needs to be built up within your organization. You cannot be dependent on a number of consultants or advisors or who are going to do the migration. You need to build it. You can incubate skills, but you need to build these skills within your organization.